World Review 2013. I'm Sonia Artero. It was the standout story of the year, Edward Snowden and his leaks about U.S. spying activity. It showed the extent to which America and its allies snooped on friends, enemies, and even ordinary citizens. It's also relevant to Hong Kong because it's here where the story really got going. Edward Snowden, the contract worker for the U.S. National Security Agency, knew his life would change forever when he took files containing information about the extent of American spying activity around the world. Using Britain's Guardian newspaper and its reporter Glenn Greenwald as his conduit, Snowden's leaks sent shockwaves around the world. People were outraged, while Washington was highly embarrassed. It was forced into major damage control mode as it explained itself to its allies, not to mention countries such as Russia and China, which were also revealed as prime targets of American surveillance. It was also revealed that Britain was in on the act, using American intelligence to snoop on its European partners, even at crucial European Union meetings. The administration was furious, denouncing Snowden, saying the leaks compromised genuine efforts to protect America and its allies from enemies like the Al-Qaeda terror network. The White House also said the leaks made relations with its partners unnecessarily complicated. Question was, where was Snowden? He had fled the United States, turning up in Hong Kong. The city suddenly became the focal point for a major world story. Snowden gave his first interview in Hong Kong, saying he did what he did to expose, in his view, the destructive, growing, and unchecked reach of U.S. spying activity. By mid-June, the story was not only about America's surveillance program, there was also the question of Snowden's fate. Washington told Hong Kong to send him back as soon as possible. But the SAR government dragged its feet as Snowden looked for other places to seek asylum in. Scandinavia, specifically Iceland, was mentioned as one possible destination. Then it was Cuba, or possibly someplace in Central America. Snowden left Hong Kong abruptly for Russia, with the U.S. furious at Hong Kong for not arresting and extraditing the former contractor as requested.
As a result of Mr. Snowden's departure from Hong Kong to a third country, there have been expressions of displeasure on the part of some quarters of the United States.
Chief Executive Lun Chong-ying and his officials explained that U.S. paperwork was not entirely in order, giving the government here no choice but to let Snowden go. Obviously, that explanation didn't go down so well in Washington. So, Snowden languished for the rest of the month in the transit zone of a Moscow airport while his fate was in limbo. With Cuba, Central America, and Iceland proving unviable, his options were becoming limited. He got a boost when several Latin American countries offered him asylum in protest at America's spying program, as well as the treatment of Bolivian President Evo Morales, whose plane was forced to land in Europe because of suspicions he was secretly carrying Snowden on board. Those suspicions were unfounded. Despite their asylum offer, getting to Latin America would prove difficult, considering he would have to fly over countries allied to the U.S. The breakthrough came in August. Russia offered him a temporary visa to stay, and Snowden left the Moscow airport where he had been holed up for weeks. Later in the fall, more revelations appeared in The Guardian, detailing American snooping activity on France, tapping phone calls and monitoring emails in the country. President Obama was forced to phone his French counterpart, Francois Hollande, to explain the situation. In October, it got even worse for the Obama administration when more Snowden leaks revealed spying activity in Spain and Germany. The leaks showed that the NSA even tapped the cell phone of German Chancellor Angela Merkel, and that Obama may have been aware of this activity as early as 2010. All this prompted a furious reaction in Europe, where, at a meeting of EU leaders, Merkel and others like Hollande called on the United States to take serious steps to put an end to such activity, saying it had seriously damaged long-standing ties between the two sides. Delegations from Europe went to Washington for high-level talks. The White House was forced to concede that it would have to rethink U.S. intelligence gathering operations. But weeks later, these same European countries were exposed by The Guardian as having engaged in similar spying activity. Authorities in the U.S. and in Britain continued to criticize Snowden and The Guardian, insisting their actions compromise genuine efforts to thwart terrorism and criminal activity. As for Snowden, he found a job working for an online Russian venture. He continued his campaign against government surveillance programs and has portrayed himself as someone who's determined to let people know the truth about the efforts authorities make to keep tabs on their rivals, allies, and their citizens. While Snowden remains free to continue his campaign, the West's other famous whistleblower, Chelsea, or Bradley Manning, was convicted for his decision to leak thousands of files to the guerrilla website WikiLeaks. A military judge in August sentenced Manning to 35 years in prison, bringing to a close the U.S. government's determined pursuit of the Army intelligence analyst who leaked the largest set of classified documents in American history. The long prison term was a boost to U.S. authorities who were rattled by the Snowden leaks. There was also some speculation Manning's conviction might also encourage the government to bring charges against the man who was instrumental in the publication of the documents, Julian Assange, the founder of WikiLeaks. Still, Manning was acquitted of the most serious charge he faced, aiding the enemy, but was convicted of multiple other counts, including violations of the U.S. Espionage Act for copying and disseminating classified military documents. In a statement, WikiLeaks called Manning's conviction an affront to basic concepts of Western justice. It said his treatment has been intended to send a signal to people of conscience in the U.S. government who might seek to bring wrongdoing to light. Manning's numerous supporters and his defense team pledged to seek a presidential pardon. The White House merely said it would consider the request along the usual lines. Manning has since declared he intends to live as a woman. The United States had its share of drama and tragedy this year. The nation was left reeling after an attack on the Boston Marathon. Then there was the political meltdown in Washington, which caused the first U.S. government shutdown in years and nearly derailed the finances of the world's largest economy.
The President of the United States.
No one would have imagined such a drastic year for America when Barack Obama was inaugurated as president. But after averting the so-called fiscal cliff in January, tensions boiled over once again at the end of the summer. Led by radical Tea Party members, Republicans in the lower house of Congress started talking about how they would refuse to pass routine legislation to fund the U.S. federal government if they didn't get concessions on President Obama's health care insurance scheme known as Obamacare. Obviously, the White House wasn't going to budge. Nor would Obama's fellow Democrats concede ground on the president's and indeed the party's signature legislation. So, a standoff ensued in September as both sides dared each other to blink first. Sure enough, the U.S. government entered a partial shutdown after two houses of Congress failed to agree on a new budget. The closure of the government saw hundreds of thousands unable to work, receive their paychecks, or provide services for American citizens. National parks, memorials, and museums around the country were closed, while both sides seemed no nearer to an agreement. And to add to all of this, there were growing concerns lawmakers would also fail to agree to raise the U.S. debt ceiling, allowing Washington to meet its Treasury obligations. The end of September and into October was marked by lots of infighting and rhetoric. Obama had to cancel his trip to the APEC summit in Bali to negotiate an end to the shutdown and allow the debt ceiling to be raised. What ensued was an elaborate political ballet involving the White House, Republican and Democrat leaders in the Senate, and the House of Representatives. In the end, they managed to thrash out a deal just. Obama signed a bill that ended this 16-day shutdown and raised the debt ceiling. The shutdown came at a steep cost to America. Analysts estimated it took $24 billion out of the economy. The possibility of a debt default spooked investors on Wall Street and hiked interest rates. The crisis hurt America's image around the world, with other countries frustrated at Washington's failure to get its act together amid talk of a superpower in decline. China made several high-profile warnings, saying the crisis imperiled the global economy. Beijing was very aware that a failure to raise the debt ceiling would have hurt its massive holdings of U.S. treasuries. And then there's the impact it had on U.S. lawmakers. If there's one thing Americans agreed on, it's that they don't trust Congress. Polls also showed Republicans were blamed more than anyone else for what happened. But Obama's ratings also took a big hit. Having stood firm on his health insurance scheme, the White House endured a hugely embarrassing end to October. That's when the website for the scheme crashed, denying millions of people the chance to take advantage of Obamacare. Obama and officials in charge of the site rollout apologized and promised to provide a website that actually worked. But the response was slow and plodding, giving critics fresh ammunition to take aim at the president and his administration. Earlier in the year, America was spooked by something far different. A terror attack on the world-famous Boston Marathon. On April 15th, 2 pressure cooker bombs exploded, killing 3 people and injuring at least 260 others.
The American people refused to be terrorized.
The Federal Bureau of Investigation released photographs and surveillance video of 2 suspects. They were identified as Dzhokhar and Tamerlan Tsarnaev. A manhunt in the state of Massachusetts and the Boston region was launched as the pair became the world's most wanted men.
Let's go, people! Start moving back!
Shortly after the FBI released the images, the suspects allegedly killed an MIT police officer and entered into a gunfight with police. One officer was badly wounded. Tamerlan Tsarnaev was also killed in the confusion, while younger brother Dzhokhar managed to escape despite his injuries. An unprecedented manhunt ensued that week, with thousands of law enforcement officers searching a 20-block area suburb of Boston. Shortly after a shelter-in-place advisory was lowered, a Watertown resident discovered Dzhokhar hiding in a boat in his backyard. Dzhokhar was arrested and taken to hospital. While being questioned by police, Dzhokhar said his older brother, Tamerlan, was the mastermind. The 2 brothers were ethnic Chechens and had emigrated to America from Russia. They had apparently settled into the American way of life and showed little sign of wanting to become militant extremists. Weeks later, another crime story shocked America as 3 women emerged from years of captivity in Ohio. They disappeared between 2002 and 2006, but one of them, Amanda Berry, escaped and raised the alarm. Their captors dictator, Ariel Castro, was sentenced to life without parole plus 1,000 years. A month into his sentence, he was found dead in his cell after hanging himself. It's all about China when we get back on the show. Bo Xilai's downfall is complete as the former Chongqing party boss is sentenced to life in jail. Don't go away.